Far now. No, I've never. I usually only
Hi everyone, and happy National Coming Out Day. My name's Nicole Altamirano, she, her pronouns, and I'm going to be the moderator, and these are our lovely panelists. I'm going to give them a minute to go ahead and introduce themselves, but before, just a little history and background on National Coming Out Day. I have notes, so please don't mind. So National Coming Out Day was founded on October 11th in 1988 by Robert Eichenberg and Jean O'Leary, marking the anniversary of the 1987 March on Washington for lesbian and gay rights. Since then, every October 11th, thousands of LGBTQ+ individuals celebrate National Coming Out Day with workshops, events, or things like this, panel discussions. So this is one of my favorite events that Silicon Valley Pride does. It celebrates the day that people are, have decided to come out and be their authentic selves. That being said, I want to make it really clear that everybody's coming out journey is different and personal, and not one journey is more important, better, or more courageous than the next. Being alive for some of our LGBTQ+ community members is a radical act of bravery in itself. So I applaud everyone. I also want to be mindful that sometimes coming out journeys can be triggering, can be difficult, can be, sometimes hard to hear. So if that's the case, please feel free to take space, take a breather, and come back if you feel that you need to. There is no judgment. We're just happy to be here and to celebrate these wonderful, beautiful individuals. So I'm just going to pass the microphone and let them introduce themselves.
My name is Lisa. I'm a queer transgender woman, and a little bit about me. I worked in the Valley as an engineer for almost 30 years. In about a year, very heteronormative life. A little further? Closer. Yeah. Ah, okay. Is that okay? A wife, 2 kids, and about a year from retiring, I realized that I was trans. And, oh my gosh, like all hell broke loose. So I'll talk a little bit about that today, but I just want to say I loved every minute of it. I just love it. I love my life.
We love you.
My name is Helixer Gender Midwell, and I am a queer, non-binary drag king here in the Bay Area. And yeah, I mean, I've done a little bit of activism work over my very short life, but yeah, I'm not sure what else to say, but I have stories, trust me.
Hi, my name is Brian Rodriguez. I'm part of the Silicon Valley Pride Board. I work for a community-based nonprofit in HR. That's been my career, HR. I came out, or started coming out about 28 years ago. I was in high school still, and there were not GSAs, and there were not like support groups back long ago. And I started doing that in Watsonville. And go Watsonville, right? Central Coast. And when I got to college, there was no queer student union, so I started one called Queers United, and that was pretty fun. And I've made it my mission to try and be out everywhere I go, because it's not always easy for people to be out. Sometimes you can't be in, and every time I'm out, someone comes out. Everywhere I am, someone comes out to me. So I applaud everyone who's able to be out.
Hello everyone, my name is Marissa Hemstreet. I am from the Canyoncito Band of Navajos from Stockton. My family lives in Tehajli, New Mexico. And for me, I'm not very sure what my pronouns are, but the terminology I'd like to use is a two-spirit term. It means it's nalihe, which means the transformed one who transforms, one who transforms. So yeah, my coming out, I'm excited.
Thank you, everyone. So we're just going to go through a little list of questions. Feel free to answer, to pass, however you would like. But the first question, which is, you know, basic, like, tell us your coming out experience. What is your story, your coming out story? At least the first one, because we continued to come out.
So, I don't have a clear story. I apologize in advance. This is not very clear to me, so it's probably not going to be very clear to you. I had built up these walls of denial about my true nature for basically almost my entire life, and I'm a COVID baby. So during the COVID epidemic, I just couldn't do it anymore. Things started falling apart. And sometime around about a month before Labor Day of last year, I just couldn't, everything just fell away. It's a weird, I don't have a good narrative to explain what happened. But all of a sudden I realized, oh shit, this is who I am. So I told my wife, and that did not go well at all. She was not supportive. I don't want to talk about that. It doesn't help anyone. So we split up shortly after that. I left the house, and I ended up checking into a hotel. It's like, what the hell do I do now? So the next day I was supposedly working, so I got my computer. None of us were going to work back then. And so I stared at my email, pretending to work, and I said, no, I'm not going to work today. So I went on to Apple. I used to work for Apple. I should have said that. I used to work at Apple. And so I went to their diversity inclusion website looking for trans stuff and found nothing. That's a bad sign. So I ended up going to their private Apple site, which had lots of stuff. And I was looking around and I saw the photo of somebody I worked with before. I said, oh, John. So what I decided is I had to talk to somebody. I didn't know at the time a single other trans person on the planet other than myself. I had to talk to somebody. So I sent an email to John and kept it very brief. I said basically, hey John, we haven't talked in a while, but I just realized I'm trans and I'm feeling quite lost. Can you hook me up with someone to talk to me? He responded right away, yeah, I can do that. So, So I got an email shortly after from a person I'll call Liz. It's actually her name, their name. Hey there, congratulations on taking this next step in your journey. Let me know when you're comfortable with me starting to use she, her, and if there is a name change associated with that. Apologies for the delay, there wasn't any delay. So 5 hours later, we were doing WebEx. WebEx is like Zoom, in case you don't know. And they let me just dump it out. Oh my God. I cried so much. But I felt so empowered by finally talking to somebody who understood what I was going through. Okay, that's enough.
For my coming out story, I was in 9th grade, and at the time I was identifying as bisexual because I felt like that was easier than saying I'm a lesbian. You know, like you want your parents to feel like, oh yeah, there's still hope, like they'll end up with a guy someday, you know? And I had my share of boyfriends, you know, like we held hands, that's it. And so I remember I went to the restroom during a class and this girl stopped me, she's like, hey, you're Jennifer, that's my out of drag name. And she's like, are you a lesbian? And I said, no. And she's like, it's okay if you are, like, just say it. And so I was like, okay, yeah, I'm a lesbian. And she said, see, that wasn't hard, was it? And like, I don't know, like, who she is. I don't remember her name, but that was like, that was like the most influential thing for me becoming who I wanted to be, you know? And I realized, I was like, yeah, there are hateful people in the world, but in that moment I was like, it really is as simple as being like, this is who I am, so what, you know? And so my mom and my stepdad, they're right there. My mom, she always knew that I was gay. Like, growing up, she would put me in a dress and I'd be so disappointed, and then she'd give me sneakers and jeans and a t-shirt, and I was in heaven. And I came out to my dad, and we're like very close. I don't know why, I was just so scared, and he was taking me home after a weekend of being at his house, and I was like, Dad, I gotta tell you something, and like I'm breathing hard, and I'm like crying, and I'm like, Dad, I'm gay. And he's driving, and he's like looking forward, and he goes, I already knew that. And I was like, what? Here I am like going through the ringer, just like about to bare my soul, and he's like, yeah, you know, the way that he raised me, like if he had a jacket, he bought me the jacket. If he had a hat, he bought me the hat. So he kind of raised me like a son a bit, you know, and same thing with my brother. He raised me like a little brother. So, you know, yeah, I just had a lot of support, and, you know, some people are not so accepting at times, and they feel like, oh, well, it's because you haven't met the right guy yet. And I'm like, dude, come on, like, when guys would say that to me, I'd be like, well, have you not met the right guy yet? Because if it works for me, it should work the same way for you. So, yeah. And then as of June this year, I came out as non-binary. And I realized through doing drag, when you're growing up, you know, people want you to like wear makeup, wear dresses, and I just never felt like that. When I would go to public restrooms, even though I was cisgendered, women would give me looks like, what are you doing in here? And I'm like, if I'm supposed to be a cisgendered woman, why am I like getting the judgment? So, you know, boys and like female partners like never really treated me like I was this ideal of like a woman, and I've always felt more androgynous my entire life. So through doing drag and like doing feminine things on my own terms, and also exploring my masculinity, I was like, I think non-binary perfectly captures exactly how I feel, you know? And so, yeah, now I use they, them pronouns, out of drag, he, they, in drag, and yeah, it's been beautiful. Like, the drag community has been so supportive and welcoming, and even with coming out, they're like, you know, this doesn't have to be forever, you know, but if it is, like, that's awesome. So it gave me the freedom to be like, okay, identity is fluid, sexuality is fluid, and even though this is how I'm identifying now, it doesn't have to be like, okay, all or nothing, this is exactly how you have to be. It's like, you know, life is, it's really not that serious, and people just ruin it for the rest of us. So, yeah, it's been great.
So I joke that I was never in the closet, because if you went through my childhood photos, you'd see me posing. There'd be a hat with flowers on my head, and I'd only be having that and pink gloves and perhaps my mother's shoes or something, you know, just random really gay kid stuff in my baby photos. And faggot and harassment was a very common thing for me growing up, starting in kindergarten. And I say I started out my coming out journey in high school almost 28 years ago. I was a junior in high school. And the prom queen, Watsonville High School, 1993, was a lesbian. And she was in the closet, just like me. But only she was athletic, but she was cool and pretty and had respect and was not harassed the same way I was. And I remember we were in summer school, and she saw me walking by, and she had a car. She's like, hey, do you want to go to lunch? And I was like, okay, cool. And we went to lunch, and we went to McDonald's or someplace like that, and she said, I'm bisexual. And I was like, oh yeah, me too. And then we started our instant friendship. None of us were bisexual. And stupid things that we say just because of homophobia, right? And what society puts on us. And so that started my journey, because it started with her. And she was the first person I could be authentic with, and I was the first person she could be authentic with. And so that's the two of us in high school. And she actually stood up for me a couple times, and made the rest of my junior year and then my senior year to follow, I think, a little bit easier, because she told guys who were being assholes to fuck off, and that it didn't impress her. And that was enough. And I would have to say that if anyone stood up for me in a meaningful way in high school or when I was growing up, it was a woman or a girl. It was someone who probably got shit from guys too. That started my journey, and I realized, you know, it wasn't safe for me to be visibly out and acknowledge it. But as soon as I became 18 and I was prepared to couch surf if needed, I came out. I came out to my mother, my stepfather, my father. It wasn't easy. It took a few years for them to be comfortable with it, but I had to come out so I could be sane. And there was no LGBTQ group, and I think that's such a long thing. So I just love saying Queers United. It was a little bit edgy in the 90s saying queer, and we were taking that word back, and it was awesome. And another thing I liked about using Queers United as our student union is that a lot of women, a lot of bisexuals, and they didn't have the words, but I think back then probably differently gendered, non-cisgendered, or in between people started coming, or that were outwardly non-cis participated. So I love that word. Words are powerful and they can be inclusive. So be visible if you can.
That was an awesome segue, because for me, my coming out journey wasn't more coming out, it was more validation. Like you were just sharing, Brian, words have power. So growing up in Stockton, I'm an urban native. I've only recently started getting in touch with my roots. I'm very colonized. So I work here in San Jose for the Indian Health Center, Santa Clara Valley. They are a wonderful agency. I've been with them for 7 years. Now it's with them and then visiting my family now back on the reservation that I've really started to get back in touch with my native roots, learning native terminology, and then there's a term that I learned about, wasn't recently, it was years ago, two-spirit, and I've heard it, and I was like, what does that mean? How do you have two spirits? I was like, how do you get that? And so I was just learning about it, and I was like, okay, well, two-spirit is a blanket term that indigenous people use to describe, you know, the indigenous folks who identify as LGBTQ, non-binary, different things like that. But it's also a blanket term specifically for Native Americans in the US and First People in Canada. And then I was like, okay, I understand that, cool, blanket term. So if you're a two-spirit, does that mean that you have to be, you know, lesbian, gay, and bi, you know, anything like that? And it's also, in my culture, Navajo culture, the word that I used earlier was nadliche, those who transform. In like our traditional culture, it means someone who is, and I like the term that they use, and now they would say cisgendered, but in those times they would say a male-bodied person with feminine characteristics, or a female-bodied person with masculine characteristics. And just learning about that term validated my childhood. I look like a cisgender female woman, which is great. I accept my body for what it is. But up until puberty, I felt like a boy. I did not dress like a girl, and I'm happy that my grandma would take me to go get my ugly cargo shorts and my regular, you know, t-shirts and whatnot. And there was a moment that hearing this term just brought me back to. I am 12. I'm hanging out with my parents' kids, or my parents' friends' kids, which are all boys. And it's summer. We are hot. When you're hot in summer, you take off your shirt. Pre-pubescent me, no chest. These girls were not there. And I took off my shirt. And the boys looked at me like I was just fine. They're like, okay, cool, it's hot. Let's go play. We played, we came back, and I got yelled at. And they're just like, why is your shirt off? What's wrong with you? You don't do that. You're a girl. And I was just like, I just thought I would be, I didn't understand gender, anything like that, especially being that young and it not being like forced in my face for so long. And then after that, I learned, okay, sure, I'll just, you know, for my parts and whatnot. But learning about this two-spirit terminology really helped me like look within and begin my own two-spirit journey, my own Nudley Hit journey. So, thank you.
I loved each and every one of those stories. Thank you so much for the bravery to share those. So we're gonna go ahead and ask a few more questions. What made you realize, and you might have already touched on this a little, but you know, maybe with one or two sentences, if you could really define what made you realize you were ready to come out?
I don't have a good answer to that one either. I'm sorry. Like I said, I'm a COVID baby. My walls are. I came out when I was 62. So just to give some context here. So it's never too late to come out as long as you're not dead. That's the way I look at it. So I wasn't dead, so I wasn't too late. I think my theory, and it's just a theory, is that, you know, COVID hit, we all got sent home, we stopped running around like headless chickens all the time, and so all of a sudden I had time to just sit and think a lot, and I think that's what led to me finally realizing I needed to be the real me. It's weird, I say I don't know, but there was a part of me, I knew I was not the person I was presenting as. I knew that was all a lie. And I knew I was a much nicer person, but I didn't understand the details. So, anyways, that's it. That's as good as I can do.
So when I decided to come out to my dad, I'm not going to name his church because I don't believe in shade, but he belongs to a church that was openly discussing politics. And so this is 2009 when Prop 8 was, a thing, and yes meant no and no meant yes, and his church was saying vote yes on Prop 8, that way gays cannot get married. And I remember sitting there, and I'm 14, and I'm like, what the hell? Like, they're literally talking about me. And I remember there was gonna be a walkout, and my mom was like, because she wanted me to get like good grades, and I was like very like little goody, but she's like, you better not walk out. And I was like, nah, I gotta do something about this, because his church was actively talking about me, And I'm like, I wasn't out, but I'm like, there's no way I can sit here in silence and continue to like come to your church knowing that they're actively against me. They don't know it, but they are. And so that's what pushed me to come out to my dad, because I was also telling him, like, I don't want to come to your church anymore. And I guess like in different social settings, because my mom already knew, so I didn't really have to come out to her, but coming out like in the workplace, I was like talking to coworkers, they'd be like, oh, like, so, like, did you go somewhere with your boyfriend this weekend? And I'm like, I did a little lie thing like twice, like, yeah, he had fun. But I was like, I can't like sit here and lie. And there's only one me, and there's only one chance to live my life as me, And I just realized, like, I can't keep trying to live up to other people's expectations, Like, I don't want to regret it in the long run. And, like my mom, she's 67, and she tells me all the time, like, things about her life that if she had another chance, like, she would do differently. And I'm like, I'm trying to use the time that I have wisely. Like, if I had a second chance, what would I want to change this time? And so I'm trying to actively live in a way that aligns with who I am. And yeah, like, it doesn't feel good living a lie, exactly. And like, you were so brave for coming out when you did, and like how you did. And I just want to live authentically, and because of how authentically I live my life, so many people have come out to me, so many people have like asked me references for like starting hormones, like their transitions and how to come out to their families, and I'm like, it can get hard sometimes, but if me living my life can help somebody else have the courage to live their life, do you know how many people we can help? Like I said, life is too short, so, you know, once we like drop the facade and start doing what we gotta do for ourselves, like, it just becomes so much better.
What was the question again, Nicole?
What made you realize you were ready to come out?
What made me realize I was ready to come out? So, I mean, I started my process, right? I alluded to that in my story. But I guess I could say my public outing, or when I kicked the closet door open and I just didn't care anymore, was probably in high school. And I think it was being called a faggot. I think it was every time I had to go to the locker room and change, almost always having 2 or 3 guys pop a boner and tell me to suck it so that they could humiliate me in front of everyone in the locker room and I could be the taunt of the school. This is what it was like for me every day growing up in Watsonville in school. Walk down the hallway, someone slam you into a locker, call you a faggot. I fought back a couple times and guess who got in trouble? Right? I mean, like you stand up to a bully sometimes and you both get in trouble. And it doesn't matter what if they call you a faggot, it doesn't matter if they do this, you still get in trouble. So it's like, I think I came out in college because I thought if I'm gonna live with this harassment, I'm gonna live my truth as well. And at that point, I thought I knew I didn't need these people. So that's why I came out, because I knew I needed to make a difference, and I knew everyone knew I was gay, so I was like, fuck it, I'm gay, I'm a faggot, I'm the faggot you taunt every day, and suck it, you know, yourself.
That's awesome. How do I follow that? I don't know. So what made me ready? Is that okay? Realize ready. Okay, cool. So as I said before, words have power. It's learning more about my culture, continuously trying to further my own personal work, and becoming a person, growing and decolonizing myself from colonistic ideas that you need to, if you're born cisgendered, you need to stay cisgendered. Ideas that if you are a woman, you need to be with a man. If you are a man, you need to be with a woman. Different things like that, and just knowing that in my own culture that I feel so far removed from, and it's not my fault that I'm removed from it. It was beaten out of my dad in missionary school. He got hit with rulers trying to speak his own native tongue, so much so that when he tries to say a word in Navajo, he flinches. That's not good. He's a strong man, so I'm like, just thinking of that image, I'm just like, I can't believe that you went through that, and I'm sorry that happened to you. And then for me, in my own culture, Nadlijes were not only, allowed to be there, they were held as sacred beings, sacred people who would be, decision makers. They would help, broker deals between different tribes. They were looked to as like medicine women, medicine men. And so just to think that the term that I hold so near and dear to my heart now was not only, around during that time, it was sacred. And so learning about these things has really helped me as a person just to be more comfortable identifying as that, and letting my family know, letting my community know, letting my loved ones know, and being okay. I let them know, like, hey, I'm telling you this is it, and if you want to continue to be in my life, great, but if not, it's all right. I lived X amount of years without you, I'll live that amount again. That's fine. So it's been more of a recent journey over the last, I want to say 3-4 years, and it's been great.
Thank you. The next question I'm going to combine into one for the sake of time, but if you could tell us what impact coming out has had in your life, whether it's a positive or a negative impact. Yeah.
So that's an easy one for me. It's by far the best thing I've ever done in my life. Bar none. I love being trans. I wake up every morning saying, yes, I'm still trans. I love it. It's just wonderful. By far the best thing that's ever happened to me.
So when I first came out, my stepmom thought that she saw something on my Facebook that said I was gay, but that's not what it meant. She mistranslated. But I was going to go live with my dad for a little bit, and my ex at the time, or my girlfriend at the time, she was helping me move, and my stepmom was like, okay, so let's sit down. Like, so you are lesbians, that's what you're called, you know, and let's talk about this. And I was like, actually, I'm a lesbian, she's bisexual, but, you know, specifics. So, it was like, she started out saying like, oh, I don't want you to touch her around me. Like, it wasn't even like provocative, it was like a back rub, you know? I'm like, dang, okay. But over time, she's like my little bestie now, and she like actively invites my partners, you know, to like holidays. And she's like this last Christmas, she's like, let's watch Nightmare Before Christmas every